For me, for this, for true sat dollar parity, or for the dollar to become worthless, or for hyper-BITCOINIZation, I was talking with Luke Broyles about it earlier today. I kind of think it's probably something between 2030 and 2038. It's going to take time.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Finance Wolf. In this video, Larry Lepard talks about cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. Warrants. For years, a financial expert has been advising investors to avoid the ongoing devaluation of fiat currencies by turning to gold. However, the rise of Bitcoin has changed the game, making Lepard's task much easier. This digital gold has proven to be a superior alternative. Lepard is a knowledgeable individual who is passionate about sound money. She is also a strong advocate for Bitcoin and an experienced investment manager at Equity. In a recent interview with Gold, I talked about the significance of locating an investment that offers adequate defense against fiat depreciation in addition to other beneficial features that are not commonly associated with GoldRepublic based on a Lepard price prediction. The value of a single Bitcoin is predicted to reach millions of dollars in the future, providing a very positive prognosis for the most popular cryptocurrency. In his conversation with Alexa Jordanov, Lepard expressed a highly optimistic outlook for the years 2028 to 2038, predicting a complete collapse of the financial system and a shift towards a global Bitcoin standard. This extremely optimistic forecast for Bitcoin is not only due to the ongoing devaluation of fiat currency, but also to growing concerns that the situation will deteriorate significantly in the future. The research predicts the UPC event based on the Strauss-Howe generational theory, which establishes the start and end dates of the cycle. With the world's $315 trillion debt load, the analysis suggests that the financial system collapse in 2008 signaled the beginning of a new cycle that is accelerating quickly. It is predicted that inflation will give way to hyperinflation and then to hyper-BITCOINIZation, which refers to the moment when Bitcoin surpasses traditional forms of money and becomes the primary currency in most, if not all, countries. Larry Lepard talks about, so please watch the entire video, like and share it, and subscribe to our Finance Wolf channel. Regards.
On kind of looking at the cycles and the timing and how things are getting shorter, the contractions are getting stronger and more close. Cyclical. Well, right now we just had a downturn. I mean, M2 actually went down, which was very rare, because Powell took rates from 0 to 525 in a very short period of time. But it's M2 starting to grow again, implying that there's some liquidity and then the banks are starting to lend. It's a little mysterious to me how it's actually happening, but it's exactly. I mean, they've got a lot of tools behind the scene that they're using, But yeah, I mean, the way I get to the 2020, 30 to 2038 timeframes, I use kind of the model that Howe and Strauss developed with the fourth turning, and you're familiar with it. So I date the beginning of this fourth turning to 2008. And fourth turnings have lasted from maybe as short as 7 to 10 years in the Civil War, to more likely they're kind of 15, 20, perhaps even as long as 30 years. So if you kind of assume that, so we're not at 2028 will be 20 years, 2038 will be 30 years. I think this monetary system's dead before 2038, way before 2038. But yeah, just completely dead. I mean, the dollar's worthless. Yeah, well, the dollar's worthless. Frank's all currency is worthless, and we're on a Bitcoin standard. That's kind of what I think. Yeah, but like I said, I've been early and wrong plenty. So be prepared to have me be early and wrong. Well, and I will tell you there are two possible ways they get out of it. Well, there are three maybe. One is they do just they do kind of the playbook we ran after World War II, which is they run really high inflation until they can get the sovereign debt, size down to a place at which they can reestablish control of the monetary system. So they quote unquote kind of save it. It's like a Volcker, but over 7 or 8 years, right? And Israel did something similar when they had a problem like this. The other thing would be they do a one-time monetary reset, like what Roosevelt did, right? And he grabbed the gold, revalued it, devalued the dollar in terms of gold 70%, overnight. The government, somebody intelligent in the government could realize, hey, this monetary system is failing, we got to fix it. And therefore, we're going to do a 10-for-1 split on the dollar. And old dollars are worth 10, new dollars are 1. New dollar is backed by gold, oil, basket of currencies, whatever it is, but it's backed by something that can't be printed, so it's sound.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. And that's why it's probably not a high probability that a lot of people get hurt. But, the alternative is the whole thing fails. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the alternative is Mad Max, but it'll be for a very brief period of time, there'll be a lot of chaos. There'll be a lot of hyperinflation. I mean, I think, we could get to a stage where, you see, Bitcoin at a much, much higher price, and you see a dollar at a much lower price, certainly in Bitcoin terms, same difference. And, they're parallel, but eventually it goes back to what I said in the earlier part of the interview, which is to say that when a consensus of the people realize that the dollar is shit, that there's just no point. I mean, it's good for transacting, but nothing else. They're going to do what the people in Weimar Germany did in 1922. The minute they get a hold of a dollar, they're going to convert it. Nobody wants to hold it. It's like a hot potato, right? They just want to get out of it, get out of it, get out of it. It's called Gresham's Law. You're getting rid of the currency that you know will lose its purchasing power, and you're buying a currency that you know will hold or increase its purchasing power. And so that process will accelerate, and just as in the Silicon Valley Bank instance, everybody at once suddenly said, holy shit, this bank is bankrupt, I got to get my money out of there. It can happen fast. It could happen really, really fast. Now, the US dollar is, one day, $45 billion. One day. I mean, talk about click money, right? Well, and that's the thing, that's why I say, don't discount the possibility that it could happen, quickly and before 2030, because, we're all so connected with the internet and social. Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, in the short term, you could have some real volatility and some real problems, and that doesn't. To me, I wouldn't worry. Anybody who holds Bitcoin, I wouldn't worry about that. Do you know what I mean? I mean, yes, they can try and close the gates, but they really can't effectively close the gates because, absent shutting off all the electricity and shutting down the internet, which I view as just an almost zero probability event, there will be a way to transact in Bitcoin. Do you know what I mean? In some country, in some way. Now, in the short run, if the government made it completely illegal and threatened to throw us all in jail and grabbed all the Coinbase coins, there are a lot of things they can do to throw sand in our eyes. But if you've got your own coin, self-sovereign, I don't see how we come out. And by the way, if the government does any of these things, there's a Streisand effect, right? Everyone's going to go, holy shit, that stuff's really valuable. I got to get some because the government doesn't want me to have it. You know what I mean? There's a reverse psychology piece to it all. So, yeah. I think what you're going to have, this is not the 1930s in America where people believed in the government and trusted Roosevelt and thought he was a good guy and trying to do the right thing. This is 80% of the country distrust the federal government, and everybody and their brother is going to say, oh yeah, thanks government. Yeah, F you, we're not giving you anything. And I got to tell you, most of the red states, that's how, 25 states back Texas. There are a lot of people in the United States that, their view of the federal government is, screw you. We're not going to play. And that's what it comes down to. It ultimately comes down to social consensus. If nobody trusts the government and everybody wants to hold an alternative form of money, whether it be gold or silver, Bitcoin, land, food, cattle. In a real Mad Max scenario, obviously, even Bitcoin and gold aren't particularly valuable if you can't, put food on your table. But again, humans are incredibly adaptive, incredibly, flexible, and can do things, really well. And, apart from some short-term disruptions, I think that we get, whatever bad stuff comes, solutions and workarounds happen to it really, really quickly. And so while there could be a disruption that's uncomfortable, just as in the 30s. There was a time in the 30s, a bunch of banks failed, and they shut down the banks, and they shut down the stock exchange for a number of days. I can't remember exactly how many, but it was a lot. And that kind of stuff can happen, no doubt. there could be a real disruption here. But on the other side of it, the things that have value still have value. An ounce of gold is an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver is an ounce of silver. A Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. That's it.
Yeah.
And, it's the dollar that's got a problem. It's on my Twitter feed. It's a chart by a friend of mine, a guy named Dan Oliver, who's a very great monetary scholar and runs a gold fund. And he plotted the price of gold and the price of the Weimar mark as measured in gold during Weimar. And what you saw was incredible volatility. And this is because the authorities at the time, they'd come out with a statement and say, oh, we're going to stop printing. We're going to go back to a gold standard. Everything's okay. Calm down. You don't need to worry about accepting your marks and holding on. You hold your marks. Be patriotic, right? They would say those kind of, oh, great. Okay. Yeah, we believe you, government. And the price of gold in Weimar terms or in Marx terms would go down. But then of course, the announcement, a month later, oh, we printed some more money. Well, oh shit, and so what you saw in that process was the population of Germany slowly but surely coming to realize they can't ever stop. They're never going to stop. I mean, there are tales of how in nightclubs, entertainers used to talk about how, the only ones that are laughing on these jokes are the people who have, their currency in pounds, dollars, or gold. When you get to the point where the entire country knows the currency is a joke, and it's becoming worthless, it becomes self-fulfilling. Because the currency really is what it's the medium of exchange that we all trust in transacting with each other, but also, at least over a medium-term time frame, it should retain its value. I mean, it can, and as we've proven, it can debase 7% a year for long periods of time and still survive. But when it starts debasing, when you start debasing 10% a month, I mean, hyperinflation is defined as 50% a month. And we've had 100 plus hyperinflations in history, in the last 200 years. And, we're kind of having a mild one right now in Turkey. They had a very severe one in Venezuela where their currency became worthless. We've had plenty of other examples. I mean, Hungary, I mean, you just go through it. Zimbabwe, there are many of them. And they all seem to exhibit the same characteristics, which is the currency starts dying, it starts slowly, and then it gets more rapid, the swings get wider, it gets more rapid, and then pretty soon everybody's like, oh, this is, screw this, I'm out of here. I'm not holding this anymore. And it kind of becomes stunning. I mean, if you look at, I can't remember, I was looking at the math, I think it was on Turkey, and what people were buying and the way things cost, and things in Turkish, they use the franc, I think it's a Turkish franc, isn't it?
Here is Larry Lepard providing an in-depth examination of the latest fluctuations in the value of Bitcoin. Proposal: his examination of the price swings of Bitcoin following herring dynamics and its correlation with gold offers insightful guidance for investors navigating the cryptocurrency market. His comments on the Federal Reserve policies and Bitcoin's potential as a stable form of currency are worth considering, highlight the growing importance of digital assets in the current financial environment. His analysis shows the resilience and potential of Bitcoin as a revolutionary asset class. Before we continue, let me just remind those who are interested in staying informed about the quickly changing world of cryptocurrency that, like other conscientious investors who have done their homework, Larry is very optimistic about the leading cryptocurrency asset in the short and long term given the sizable demand from ETFs. In addition to forecasting large price rises for Bitcoin, Larry is also bullish about the cryptocurrency's long-term outlook, speculating that the eventual collapse of the present monetary system would push Bitcoin values to millions of dollars per coin. What do you think about Larry's interview and his incredibly bullish forecasts for Bitcoin? If this video has taught you anything, please like it and subscribe to our channel, Finance Wolf. We'll talk in the next video.